Here once. Okay, thanks. So we're living in a fortunate time in the field of user experience. More people than ever before outside the field are getting to have heard of user experience. Maybe they don't know exactly what it is, but they've heard the term. And more and more people are beginning to realize that to design an effective user experience, you need to understand your users. And people are beginning to understand that you need to do user research. But there's still a lot of myths and legends out there about user research, what it involves, what kind of information it produces, and how you actually conduct user research. So what we're going to do today is go on a little journey to explore the myths and legends surrounding user research and try to find out if it's the truth about some of these myths. So the first one we'll look at here is that user research involves asking people what they want. Some people who are more familiar with traditional requirements gathering, such as getting a bunch of people in a conference room and asking them, what kind of features do you want, how do you want to improve this interface. They may think this. People who also are more familiar with market research techniques like surveys and focus groups may think this. So they may be more used to getting people together in a focus group and showing them some concepts and ideas and asking their opinions about those. But as you may know, if you're familiar with user research, the truth is that user research is about inferring what people need. So typically what we do is ideally we go out to where people are performing their tasks and observe them performing their tasks, have them walk you through and tell you what they're doing, ask them some questions about what they're doing, and from that information you gather general information about what they need, and you infer what they need from that. And that's because you don't ask people what they want or what they need, because people have a hard time defining what it is that they need or what they want. And when you take people out of the context of their work, you bring them into a focus group facility or a conference room, people have a hard time talking about all the details of their everyday tasks and activities. Because a lot of things that we do are sort of automatic. We don't think about each of the steps that are involved. So that's why you need to go out and observe people performing the tests. People also have a hard time predicting what they would do or what they wouldn't do in the future. So you ask people, what do you think of this feature? Would you want this feature? Would you use this? So people have a hard time predicting that actually. People also have a hard time imagining some sort of future design or some future feature just from your description. People need to actually see something and actually try it out in prototype before they can give you accurate feedback. So because people have had such a hard time saying what they want, saying what they need, that just kind of led people to proclaim the second myth here, that don't listen to users. And that sounds kind of contradictory. Why would somebody in user experience say, don't listen to users? And so you see things like this article from Jacob Nielsen, and I was surprised, I remember this, but I was surprised it was way back in 2001. So why would this, usability guru say, don't listen to users? It was, a way to catch attention. If you read his article, he pretty much says what I've been saying, that people can't tell you what they need. You need to go out and observe them performing their activities. But you see this a lot, and here's another example, and I could probably show 10 more examples of this if I wanted to. There's all kinds of articles out there that say, don't listen to users, don't listen to users. And if you read them, they all kind of say what I've been saying, but people sometimes misinterpret this. It's kind of a generalization. People think this, so they point to Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs didn't listen to his customers. He was a genius designer, and he determines what people need, and he shows it to them, and then they'll like it because he knows what people need. But really, if you look at what his quote is saying here, he's kind of saying the same thing, that you can't really design from focus groups. People can never tell you that they need the iPhone or the iPad. And if you did a focus group where you showed people some concepts of the iPad and tried to describe it to them, they couldn't really accurately tell you whether they would use that or not, or whether they like something like that or not. So that makes sense. You see people talk about the supposed quote from Henry Ford, and a lot of people said that never really said this, so this has been attributed to them. So people point to something like this and they say, well, you shouldn't talk to your users. But, if somebody really said this in Henry Ford, that you shouldn't just dismiss all those stupid customers, they don't know what they want. But what this really, you would see this and say, okay, well, why do they want something faster? They want something faster than a horse and buggy. And you would kind of talk to them and watch them driving a horse and buggy and see what other problems they have. Some, or, they don't like all the horse food they get all over the place. That's a big problem with cars. So the truth is that listening to users is a very important part of user research. So this is a big overstatement. Don't listen to users, because ideally, yes, you go out and observe users, but you also have to talk to them. You have to have them talking through what they're doing. Because a lot of times you don't know subject matter, you don't really know what they're doing or why they're doing what they do. By just observing, you make some assumptions, and you end up with a lot of questions. So you have to ask them to really understand what they're doing and why. So don't listen to users is a really sort of big oversimplification. I think a better saying would be ask the right questions. So the next myth out here is that user research is going to provide these amazing, stunning new revelations, these amazing things that nobody's ever thought of before. It's all going to be great. These innovations are going to come right out of user research. And people maybe get this impression from salespeople who are trying to sell them user research, or maybe people like us who are evangelizing the need for user research and trying to get it involved in projects, maybe we're kind of overselling. The truth is that user research provides a lot of really, really useful information for designers in making design decisions. But it may provide a few interesting, amazing insights along the way, but that's really not the primary goal of it. The primary goal of user research isn't to produce a stunning, amazing presentation to valuable stakeholders in the presentation. It's really to educate the designers so the designers have this in-depth knowledge of the users and their needs when they're making design decisions. And the next myth is sometimes people see a user research presentation as clients or stakeholders in a company, and they see it and say, oh, we kind of already do that. It's just common sense. We already do that. How many people have ever had a client or somebody that said, oh, we already do that? Okay, yeah. Yeah, we've had that a lot. And the truth is that, usually people in a company, clients, stakeholders, they do know something about their users. It's rare that you have a company that knows absolutely nothing about their users. So it would be odd if they saw a research presentation and it was completely new to them. They never completed it. But the truth is that people kind of tend to overestimate what they do. So maybe they knew a little bit about this topic over here, and they knew a little bit about this, and that. And when you go out and do user research, you end up with a lot of details. And you can't obviously present all the details, but so you summarize it up to a high-level summary. And when people see that high-level summary, yeah, they kind of did know some of this and some of this and some of that. It's easy for them to see the summary and say, yeah, I kind of already do that. But they probably never could have told you that and verbalized it as, what you presented. But the point is, besides, even if you have clients or stakeholders who say this and feel like they already do it, the person that really needs to know it are the designers, the people who are designing the application. So especially in consulting, so if you're a designer in consulting, typically when you get a project, you don't know anything really about the subject matter or the users or what their tasks are. So even if your clients already know all this information, well, that's great, but we really need to know that. We need to see that information firsthand for ourselves to really design a good product for it. So the next myth is that sometimes people think user research is going to tell you what to design. So maybe they're more familiar with traditional requirements gathering, where they get specific requirements, or maybe they're familiar with usability testing, because more people these days are familiar with usability testing than user research. So usability testing gives you specific problems and sometimes points to obvious solutions. So people didn't understand this terminology, so you need to use this terminology instead, or these fields in this form aren't necessary, so let's remove those. So sometimes people think that user research is going to tell you should design it this way, you should have this feature. But really, often what user research provides is sort of general information about the users and their context of use that you use then to create a design. It doesn't specifically tell you you should design it this way, you should have this information, you should definitely have these features. But sometimes designers who haven't been involved in user research, if they believe this myth, then they tend to believe the next myth, that user research is going to stifle their creativity. It's going to tell them what to design. So they may think of user research as the user is telling us what to do. And so they may be kind of buying into the Steve Jobs kind of myth that, oh, Steve Jobs didn't do user research, or Apple doesn't do user research, so we should be innovative designers and come up with a design that's going to work for people. We'll tell them what they need, since users don't know what they need. But the truth is, user research just provides, as you saw before, general information, and you still have all the creativity in the world to come up with a good solution. So if you think of design as problem solving, you have a client or a business that wants to create something. And so you talk to them, you discover their needs, what they want to create, what their goals are, and then you go out and do user research and you understand the users and what they need. And so that's just all the information that you need for the problem space. And from that, then you have all the creativity in the world to come up with a solution to meet those needs. It doesn't take away creativity at all. So the next myth is that you can observe people in their natural environment. So sort of the gold standard of user research is field studies, going out to the field and watching people do their normal activities. So go out to a public place, or go to people's homes, or go to their workplace and just sit and watch them perform their tasks and maybe ask them questions. And you can see what people naturally do as if you weren't even there. The truth is that your presence affects people's behavior. You're never going to really see completely natural behavior unless you're being out in a public place and you're just watching people, what they do. People watching. But typically, people, you're generally going to see a much more realistic view of what people do when you go to their workplace, you go to their home, you go to where they're doing their tasks. And people are generally more comfortable in their own environment versus coming into like a focus group facility. But your presence being there, it's not exactly natural for several people to come to your house or your workplace and watch you and videotape you and ask you a bunch of questions and tell you, show me this, show me that. That's going to affect people. And, that's okay. There's ways to get around that and kind of minimize that. But you have to kind of consider that your presence is going to affect people's behavior. You're not necessarily seeing what they would do if you weren't there at that moment. And the next myth is that user research and design are separate activities performed by separate roles. So people may think, there's a user researcher who goes out and conducts the research, and then it comes back a couple weeks later and gives a presentation to the project team, and the designer attends the presentation, and then maybe reads the report and goes off and creates the design. But the truth is that user research is part of the design process. So, different companies have it organized different ways. Some companies either have generalists who do both the user research and the design. Some companies have specialist researchers and specialist designers. But ideally, the person who really needs to understand the user research and really have it deep in their mind is who's ever doing the design, who's ever designing the product. Because that person has to make design decisions all along the way, and that person really needs to have an in-depth understanding of the user research. So the designer should be involved in the research, should be planning it, helping conduct it, or at least observing it, helping analyze the research. Because really attending a presentation or reading a report really isn't enough. Kind of get that sort of deep knowledge in your head about the users. So the next myth is that user research is expensive and time-consuming. So user research is like any other project activity. It's something in a project plan, and it takes certain work weeks, and it takes a certain amount of money, and you can easily remove it from the project plan and see, oh, we can save 3 weeks, or we can save $30,000 or $40,000 or whatever it is. It varies per project. You can see how you can remove it and save money. But you just do the same thing about user acceptance testing or quality assurance testing, anything in a project, and you can just remove and see what you can save. But the real question is, what are the consequences and what are the costs of those consequences? And so I'd say that the cost of not understanding users is much greater. So what are the consequences if you don't do user research? Well, then you begin the design process, and you have to design based on your assumptions. And some of those assumptions might be right, you might be lucky, and some are right, but you're probably going to be wrong about certain things. So you're going to constantly have to make design decisions along the way, and you're going to think, well, how do people use this? Should I do it this way or this way? You're just going to have to guess, basically. And sometimes you're going to find out, maybe if you use usability testing, you'll find out that you made some wrong decisions. You go back and have to make some redesign, and sometimes you won't find that out. Maybe you'll find it out in user acceptance testing, and then you have to go back and change developed code, or maybe you don't find it out until after it launches and it's not very successful. You have to do a redesign. So all in all, you end up spending a lot more money than you would if you had, cut out user research. So it's better to do user research. This is something that people often say when they say, well, we don't have time for user research, or, we can just tell you about our users. Our marketing team has done a bunch of focus groups, and, they created some personas a couple years ago. You can read those, and we have some site metrics, and we have some customer complaints that came into the support department, and, we have some subject matter experts who listen to users, and they work for our company now, and they can tell you what we need. And the truth is that all of that information is really useful, but it's not a substitute for going out and getting that first-hand experience with users. So all that information is great to read, and it's great to read anything that you can when you start out a project and talk with stakeholders and learn about what they know about the users. That's a great way to kind of get basic information about the subject matter and the users, how to plan user research. But typically that information is missing something, or it's not very complete, it's not very in-depth. Some of it might be out of date or wrong. And plus, just simply reading something is not the same as going out and experiencing it yourself. You're not getting that same depth of understanding, if you will, when you do user research. So another excuse sometimes people give when they don't want to do user research is, oh, we're going to do some usability testing. So we're going to throw together a design really quickly, and then we're going to get a prototype together, we're going to get it out there and test it. And then we're going to go back and make some changes and test it again, and maybe do another round of usability testing. So that kind of iterative design and usability testing is great, but you're still missing the upfront user research. So you're still having to begin the design process before you do any testing with just sort of assumptions. Designing based on assumptions, going down wrong paths, making wrong decisions, discovering that usability testing, going back to more design. And also the truth is that usability testing provides different information than user research. So usability testing is very focused on, how usable is this design for these tasks that I'm testing. And that's really great. It's a great way to evaluate the design. But it doesn't really tell you anything about who these people are, really. It doesn't give you much information about their characteristics or knowledge. It doesn't tell you about the tasks that they actually perform themselves, and what tools they use, what information they use. It doesn't tell you much about their environments. So it's very useful, but you need to also do the user research up front, and then also the usability testing. The next myth is that you can't research something that exists. So it's easy to see that, if you have people who are using a current product, or maybe they're doing a current process that you're going to build an application for, it's easy to see how you can be researching them. But what about when it's some sort of future products, and these customers don't really necessarily exist yet? So I was once working on scoping a project for banking clients who was thinking about doing some research to understand designing some new banking products and services. And a coworker said, well, you have to do the research on something that doesn't yet exist. And he was wrong, because these future users do exist, and you can study them. So they're not, future customers are not going to suddenly materialize from thin air as soon as you launch your product. There are people that are out there right now and they're doing something else. So in this example, this banking situation, you can identify who these people are. You go out and see what kind of banking are they doing now. How are they managing their finances now? And what kind of things work well about what they're doing now? What kind of problems do they have? What kind of needs do they have that are not being met? What kind of weird workarounds do they have and frustrations? And that can great information to tell you how to design a new problem. So, there's the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, and that's just saying that people invent things to solve their own problems and their needs. And so you could always invent something to solve their own problems, and maybe if you're lucky that will work for other people. But if you really want to invent something new that works for a lot of people, you have to go out and study those people and see what their needs are that are not being met. See what problems they have. That's how you can create to solve those needs. So the last one is that some user research is better than none. So we can't always do the ideal user research process that we like. You can't spend all the time in the world and all the money that you want and include all the participants you want. It's rare that you do the perfect sort of process. So it's understandable that sometimes you have to take shortcuts. So, for example, let's say we don't have time for user research, but we can talk to 2 or 3 users. That's better than nothing, right? Sometimes, yes, that's better than nothing. Or, we can't go out and talk to these people in person, so let's do some phone interviews. Well, yeah, that's sort of better than nothing. Or, we can't really reach the actual users, so let's talk to accountants in our own company. And they're kind of like the users, so maybe that's okay. But the problem is when you always begin to take those shortcuts, and when you're working for a company or you have clients that always want to take these shortcuts and never has time for user research, you're suddenly becoming an enabler to allow them to do that. You're kind of enabling them to conduct half-assed user research. So sometimes the truth is sometimes it's better not to do any user research than to enable half-assed user research. So, sometimes you have to practice tough love and say, we can't get away with this all the time, so let's just not hit ourselves and let ourselves check off the checkbox so we feel good about ourselves and say, yeah, we did research, check off that box. Let's do those phone interviews we always do. So it's better sometimes to just let people see what it comes out of when you have to do user research. So in conclusion, we've done this journey, we've gone around and seen a lot of these myths and legends, and you've heard about the truth. And so I'd like to encourage you to kind of go out there and try to spread the truth and get user research involved in more projects more often. So thank you very much.
Questions for Jim? Somebody must have a half-assed question.
So one thing your metrics for user research
there's a lot of different things you can do. So mostly what I was talking about here was going out and doing observation and interviews with people. So going out to where people are, doing contextual inquiries. So that's basically where you go out and you observe people performing their tasks, and you have them walking through their tasks. And then you ask questions about what they're doing, and you let them kind of tell you what they're doing. So that's kind of ideal when you're maybe you're researching people who, for example, maybe people who are in the market to buy a new car. They're at home and they show you their process they go to in researching what kind of decisions they're making, what kind of car they want, or maybe you're a work type application where you're watching a certain type of employee process expense reports or how they create monthly content financial reports. You can watch them go through the whole process and just let them kind of lead and kind of let them walk through their process and tell you a little bit about what they're doing, and you ask questions as needed as you're going through. And then there's all kinds of other methods out there. And usability testing, as you said, is good also later in the process once you have design. Yeah, it depends what they're doing. You kind of let them walk through, and you ask questions as we need to. Is that kind of what you're asking? Yeah, it kind of depends on what they're doing. So like I was talking about call center workers taking calls from customers, some people who are doing something like that. Sometimes you would just watch them to call, you might talk to them in between calls and see what they're doing. But some types of tasks people can walk you through and tell you what they're doing as you're going through. And then other types of things you might want to just do some pure observation where you're just kind of sitting in the corner and watching what these people do over a day, and then ask them questions. You're giving them at the end of the day to answer your questions. That way you can see kind of more energy into what they do in their activities.
Hi. I do good time research early as so I do enterprise applications, and usually in these projects, the stakeholders are also a whole set of managers. And so in that situation, kind of it would be even harder to get that access to other users. They can buy in the user, you already know that's not the user. Whoever has that situation on fire, but you have about getting the users from that situation.
Yeah, when I started out, I was at a bank, so I was working in an internal group, working on internal applications for internal clients and things like that. And so something like that where the stakeholders are also users, it is good to talk to stakeholders. So they're probably telling you what they're saying, well, we can tell you because we're the users, we can tell you about it. So maybe you just want to do interviews with them, and if there's other users who aren't in the meetings, and they're also, maybe they're not in projects, maybe they're their coworkers, so you could ask to go watch them walk through the process. Or even those stakeholders, you could, instead of just interviewing them at a conference room, you could ask them, let's go to your desk and have you walk through the tasks and show me step by step, because even though they're expert users and they actually are the users, it's legitimate, but it would be hard for them to tell you, each step as they go through and convey that. It'd be easier for them to tell you about that and actually perform the tasks. So you could ask them to do that. But I think also one of the good things about when you're doing work inside a company like that is the users are your coworkers and they're already being paid, and so you can easily go, a lot of times you can easily go ask for their time to go, you have much easier access to them than if they're like external customers. So it's easy to kind of try to get some time with them and have them walk through that.
The follow-up question to that. Sometimes we need ROI. We need to go out and talk to users. Do you have any insight into ROI and say payback for investing the time to the users?
For ROI, there's a lot of like information out there. A couple years ago, I wrote a white paper for Infragistics about ROI and user experience. That's out on our website. But yeah, there's a lot of studies you can point to and examples you can point to where companies did a full user experience design process, including user research, and they've shown increases in sales and a decrease in support costs or training costs, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. But yeah, it's always hard to prove for a specific project you're working on because there's all kinds of different factors, and it's much easier to see, if we remove this from the project plan, we save all this time and money. But you have to, if you really want to say, okay, this project we're working on, then you have to kind of do an experiment where you do a project with it, and then you try to measure the ROI afterwards. And by the time you're done with the project, people don't want to go back and measure that. And, so it's hard sometimes to apply ROI to a specific project that you're working on in your company. But there's a lot of sort of external examples out there, articles about it, things that you can show.
I want to challenge the final myth that you shared on whether some research is better than none, because I understand your point, but I've used that notion of just enough research as kind of a meta research approach, where just enough validates the need for research, and now we have the opportunity to do it properly. So I work at a product development company. We work in an agile environment, and we started by using some customer proxies, people who are in customer support or sales engineering, and now, because of their input and what we can provide to us, nothing goes into permitting until it's validated for research. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on the flip side of it only being a library.
Can I add one to that? Yeah. I'm holding my phone away. Jim was talking about research with small numbers of people, and maybe not work together. If you want to maybe also include the idea of a good versus a bad representative sample. Yeah. If I only had 3 people and they turned out to be not representative of anybody, now I'm using my product. Who knows?
Yeah, I think,
well, it's just, sometimes user research, I qualify that. Sometimes no user research is better than enabling user research. And it sounds like, and I said, sometimes, you have to make these shortcuts and things, and eventually, it sounds like you guys did these shortcuts, but then you got them into a place where they're including better user research and things like that. So I think it's, what I meant by enabling is you in the situation where they're always just relying on those things. They never make that change. It's a good piece of research, like you said. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because in the realistic world, you can't always we're going to do best user research. Here's all the money and time you want. Go do it. Come back when you're ready. So that never happens. But I think, that makes sense. Sometimes you do have to kind of build into it with what you can. And sometimes, 2 or 3 users is good, but sometimes it's let's just talk to our friends and family or people in our company, and they don't really represent the users, and it's not very useful, and it doesn't give you good information. So, but yeah, I definitely believe that it makes sense building up. I just said, you don't always want to let them sort of rely on that. Never gets to the point that you guys have to, so that's good.
Any other questions? Oh, one more.
So I have a follow-up comment. There are other constraints that some organizations are doing to research. We're in an enterprise space, and we don't always have access to actual users because what we're doing is very proprietary. And once you stand over their shoulders, they don't want you to know their business secrets. And with some of the product that is already superior in the market, so it's not like they have a choice to go somewhere else. They're going to use the product, and we're trying to figure out how to improve it. We can't get feedback from the users, and so after that pain, and we're shifting. So do you have any comments on how to handle the situations?
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, because I've worked on projects where, financial clients and, sometimes they let us in, but they wouldn't let us record anything, and they were very sensitive about that. So, yeah, that's always tough. Possibly getting them to come to your, maybe it's with the sense of having to go into their place and having them come to your place and maybe work on sort of show you what they do on maybe a sort of a sample system that you have. So they can kind of go through their tasks that way, and so you're not getting their actual data, but maybe it's just some sort of sample kind of data that you have. It's hard to say based on what I don't know exactly about your situation, but yeah, that's tough when you can't get in there. But maybe, if you kind of convince them that, a lot of times in these types of enterprise products and things like this, they can see that, by helping you improve it, you're going to help them with their issues and their problems. People are, really willing and they want to help. They want to get their things solved. And it's not costing them any money. Well, I guess it's like taking away their employees' time, but it's really valuable to them.
It's a cutting process.
Yeah.
So they might are exposed to that more market.
Yeah. I don't know, yeah, sometimes there's situations like that, it's just tough to do the right thing.
Other questions? Nope. All right, thank you, Jim.